You know how we can track birds and whales, like over really long distances? Well, imagine doing that, but for butterflies.
Oh, wow.
And not just like one butterfly, but like following them across like generations.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to dive into today.
Okay.
With our expert here. We're going to understand how scientists are using something really surprising to unlock the secrets of butterfly migration. And that is pollen.
Pollen, yeah. It's actually quite the challenge. When you think about it, we're talking about like trillions of insects migrating all across the globe every single year.
Yeah.
Traditional methods, like if you think about tagging,
right,
just don't work at that scale.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not like you can just like put a little GPS tracker on the butterfly and just call it a day.
Exactly, yeah.
So how are scientists getting around this?
Well, they've turned to a pretty fascinating technique called pollen metabarcoding.
Pollen meta what?
Metabarcoding. Think of it like this. Every time a butterfly lands on a flower to feed, right?
Okay.
It picks up these tiny little pollen grains, almost like it's collecting stamps in a passport.
Oh, interesting.
And these pollen grains, they actually carry a unique DNA signature.
Oh, wow.
That identifies that specific plant species it came from.
So by analyzing the pollen on a butterfly, scientists can figure out where it's been.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
It's like a detective using DNA to retrace a suspect's steps, right?
Oh, okay.
By comparing the pollen's DNA to a huge, vast library of plant DNA fingerprints, scientists can pinpoint the butterfly's travel history.
So how has this pollen detective work been used in the real world? Like, are there any examples?
One amazing example is the case of the painted lady butterfly.
Okay.
Back in 2019, there was this massive population boom of these butterflies starting in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing about that. Like, they were everywhere.
Yeah, they were everywhere. It was crazy. Researchers actually used pollen metabarcoding to map this incredible multi-generational migration.
Wow.
What they discovered was that really heavy rainfall in Arabia and the Middle East led to like a surge in plant growth, which created this huge feast for the butterflies.
So all the extra food kind of fueled a butterfly baby boom.
Exactly.
And then they just took off on this epic journey.
That's exactly what happened. The offspring of those butterflies that were feasting in the Middle East ended up in places like Russia and Scandinavia.
Oh.
And then their offspring continued the journey, reaching Western Europe, even Morocco.
Oh, wow.
Possibly continuing to tropical Africa to complete the cycle.
It's like a relay race.
Exactly. It's like a relay race.
Across continents.
Oh!
With each generation, like, passing the baton.
Yeah, exactly.
But how can they be sure it's the offspring and not the same butterflies making the whole journey?
Well, that's the beauty of pollen metabarcoding, right? By analyzing the pollen from butterflies in these different locations, they can actually see the shifts in plant species, which indicates that new generations are taking over the migration route.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like piecing together a family tree, but with pollen instead of genes.
That's amazing. And all of this is possible just from these tiny little pollen grains. It really shows you how interconnected nature really is.
It really does. And it's not just about like retracing past journeys either.
Right.
Pollen metabarcoding can actually help us predict future butterfly migrations.
Oh, wow.
Which is really important as our climate changes.
Yeah, that's a great point, because climate change could impact so many things, including like insect migration patterns.
Right.
What would be some of the consequences of that?
Well, for starters, changes in insect migration could like disrupt entire ecosystems.
Really?
Yeah. So, for example, migrating insects, they play a crucial role in pollination.
Right, yeah.
So if their migration patterns shift, it could totally affect the reproduction of plants.
Oh, what?
Leading to these cascading effects throughout the food web.
So a change in butterfly migration could like ultimately impact the plants and animals that rely on those plants for survival.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just about pollination, right?
Yeah.
Migrating insects can also spread diseases.
Oh, right.
So if their movements are altered because of climate change,
Okay.
it could lead to the spread of pathogens to new areas,
Oh.
potentially impacting crops, livestock, even human health.
That's a little scary.
Yeah.
So tracking these changes in migration patterns is really crucial for understanding the broader
Absolutely.
ecological and even health implications of climate change.
Totally. That's where pollen metabarcoding comes in. By mapping these migration patterns, we can get a better handle on how climate change might be influencing insect behavior and what the broader consequences might be.
This is all so fascinating. But did scientists always know that painted lady butterflies were such world travelers?
Not necessarily. Actually, there was quite a surprise waiting for them in South America. A place painted lady butterflies don't usually inhabit.
Really?
Yeah.
How did they get there? Did they, like, hitch a ride on a boat or something?
That's where our pollen detectives come in handy again.
Okay.
They analyzed pollen from these South American butterflies, and they found it was predominantly from a plant that only grows in sub-Saharan Africa.
So, wait, are you saying these butterflies flew across the Atlantic?
They flew across the Atlantic.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a groundbreaking discovery.
Wow.
It's the first verified instance of an insect making this transatlantic journey.
It's incredible how something so tiny, like pollen, can unlock these big scientific mysteries. And to think, this all started with a butterfly enthusiast in Belgium, just collecting samples in his garden.
Citizen science at its finest.
Really is.
Yeah.
It just goes to show the power of everyday people.
Yeah.
Contributing to scientific discovery.
So
Speaking of other everyday people, I'm curious, does this pollen tracking technique only work for butterflies?
No, not at all. The same principle actually applies to any insect that visits flowers for nectar or pollen.
Okay.
So that could be bees, flies, moths, you name it.
So this technique has the potential to unlock the secrets of insect migration, like across the board.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's huge. I imagine it could have, like, major implications for agriculture, especially, with bees being such important pollinators.
Absolutely. Imagine being able to track the movements of bees that pollinate our crops.
Yeah.
Understanding, like, how far they travel, what plants they're visiting, how their patterns change in response to things like pesticides or habitat loss.
That would be so valuable, like for farmers trying to, optimize pollination to make sure they have healthy crops.
Exactly. And it could also be really helpful for conservation efforts. Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
By understanding the migration patterns of, like, endangered insects, we can identify those critical habitats that need protection.
Yeah.
It's like having a roadmap for conservation, guiding us to those areas that are the most vital for these species' survival.
So this is really opening up, like, a whole new world of possibilities for insect research.
It is.
But I'm curious, are there any, like, limitations to this pollen tracking technique?
Of course. I mean, no scientific method is perfect.
Right.
One of the challenges is we need, like, a really comprehensive database of plant DNA.
Okay.
To accurately identify those pollen grains, we have to compare them to this vast library of known plant species.
So it's almost like trying to solve a crime, but you don't have all the suspect's fingerprints on file. You might find a match, but you might not.
Exactly. And just like with any database, the more complete it is, the more powerful the technique becomes.
Makes sense. Scientists are constantly working to expand these botanical databases, but there are always going to be gaps, especially in regions that have really high plant diversity.
Right. What other limitations come to mind?
Well, pollen can degrade over time.
Okay.
So the longer a butterfly or a bee has been carrying those pollen grains around, the more likely it is that that DNA has broken down, making it harder to analyze.
So it's like a race against time. The fresher the sample, the better.
Exactly. Ideally, researchers want to get their hands on those insect samples as soon as possible after they've been collected.
Of course. And none of this would even be possible without people actually out there collecting those samples in the first place.
Yeah.
We talked about Sylvain Cuvier, our citizen scientist from Belgium.
Yeah.
But there must be, like, a whole network of people contributing to this research.
Oh, absolutely. Citizen science is essential for this kind of large-scale data collection. There are, like, butterfly enthusiasts, beekeepers, nature lovers, all over the world who are collecting samples and sending them off to labs to be analyzed.
It's amazing how something that seems so simple,
I know,
like just catching a butterfly in your backyard, can actually contribute to, like, Groundbreaking scientific discoveries.
It really does show how anyone with a passion for nature can play a role in advancing our understanding of the world around us.
Absolutely. Speaking of advancing our understanding, we've talked a lot about how pollen tracking can help us understand insect migration patterns.
Right.
But what about, like, other potential applications?
Sure.
Could this technique be used to study, like, other aspects of insect behavior?
Yeah, definitely. For example, some scientists are using pollen analysis to study insect diets.
Oh, interesting.
So by identifying the different types of pollen an insect has consumed, they can get this really detailed picture of its feeding habits, which can be super helpful for understanding things like competition for resources or the impact of habitat changes on insect populations.
So it's like looking at an insect's, like, grocery list.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we can see what they've been snacking on.
Yeah.
And get a better understanding of their ecological role.
Exactly. And the applications go beyond just diet.
Okay.
Some researchers are even using pollen analysis to study the spread of diseases.
Oh, wow. So similar to how we talked about, like, changes in migration patterns potentially leading to the spread of diseases.
Exactly.
We could actually see what pathogens an insect might be carrying based on the pollen that it's collected.
Exactly. It's like having this microscopic record of an insect's interactions with its environment, including any potential pathogens it may have encountered.
That's incredible. That opens up, like, a whole new avenue for understanding disease transmission.
Right.
And potentially even, like, predicting and preventing outbreaks.
Absolutely. And it has significant implications for agriculture, too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
By understanding which insects are carrying pathogens that can harm crops, farmers can develop these targeted pest control strategies that are more effective and less damaging to beneficial insects.
It seems like the possibilities with this are just endless.
They are.
This tiny pollen grain, it's really holding a wealth of information.
It really is. And we're only just beginning to, like, scratch the surface of what we can learn from it. I think one of the most exciting aspects of this research is how it's bridging the gap between scientific research and the general public. Citizen science is playing such a vital role in these discoveries.
It's a powerful reminder that science isn't just something that happens in labs. It's happening all around us. Everyone can contribute to it. But I am curious, are there any challenges specific to relying on citizen scientists for this kind of research?
Of course. One of the main challenges is ensuring data quality. When you're working with volunteers, it's super important to have clear protocols for collecting and handling those samples to ensure consistency and accuracy.
You wouldn't want somebody, like, accidentally contaminating a sample with pollen from their own garden.
Exactly. That's why training and education are so important. You know, a lot of citizen science projects provide resources and guidance to volunteers to make sure they're collecting data correctly.
So it's really a partnership. Scientists rely on the enthusiasm and dedication of citizen scientists. And citizen scientists benefit from the expertise and guidance of researchers.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how collaboration can lead to groundbreaking discoveries. And in the case of pollen metabarcoding, those discoveries are really changing the way we understand the intricate world of insect migration.
It's amazing to think that something so small, like a pollen grain, can have such a big impact on our understanding of the natural world.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of all living things. From the tiniest insect to the tallest tree. We're all part of this complex web of life, and understanding those connections is crucial for our own well-being.
So where do we go from here? Like, what's next for this pollen tracking research?
Well, one of the most promising areas is using this technique to study the impacts of climate change on insect populations. Like we talked about earlier, changes in climate can alter those migration patterns, disrupt ecosystems, even lead to the spread of diseases.
It seems like having a way to track these changes in real time would be so valuable for conservation efforts, agriculture, public health. Really, for understanding the future of our planet.
Absolutely. By monitoring how insect populations are responding to climate change, we can make more informed decisions about how to mitigate the negative impacts and adapt to a changing world.
It's like having a crystal ball. But instead of magic, it's powered by science and these tiny but mighty pollen grains.
And the beauty of it is that anyone can be a part of this scientific revolution. Whether you're a seasoned entomologist or a casual butterfly enthusiast,
Right.
you can contribute to this research and help us unravel the mysteries of the insect world.
Yeah, it really is mind-blowing when you think about it. These tiny pollen grains, like smaller than the period at the end of this sentence.
Right.
They're like little time capsules, revealing not only where an insect's been,
but
also giving us clues about its diet, the diseases it might be carrying, and even how it's adapting to climate change.
And it's not just the scientific knowledge we're gaining, right? This research is bringing people together. It's fostering a sense of community among scientists and citizen scientists and nature enthusiasts alike.
Yeah, totally. I love that aspect of it, like breaking down barriers, showing that anyone can contribute to scientific discovery.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, the discovery of those painted lady butterflies in South America,
Right.
a place they don't usually call home.
Sure.
Can you remind us how that all unfolded?
Yeah, so scientists were initially baffled by the presence of these butterflies, so far from their typical range, but then they started analyzing the pollen.
Okay.
That's when things got really interesting. They found pollen grains from plants that only grow in sub-Saharan Africa.
So wait, you're saying these butterflies flew
Thousands of miles.
across the ocean? That sounds like something out of like a nature documentary.
It does.
How did they manage to do that?
Well, it's still a little bit of a mystery, but scientists believe they might have been aided by wind currents and maybe even storms. Some insects are actually known to ride these air currents for long distances, almost like tiny aerial surfers.
Wow, that's wild. It really makes you realize how much we still don't know about the natural world and the amazing things that these creatures are capable of.
Exactly, and that's what makes this research so exciting. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of our understanding.
Right.
And each new discovery opens up a whole new world of questions to explore.
It's not just about butterflies and bees, is it?
No.
This pollen trekking technique has implications for all sorts of insect migrations.
Yeah.
Like moths, beetles, flies, even ants.
Absolutely. It's a whole new lens through which to view the insect world.
Wow.
We can start to map these really complex movements, understand how they're interconnected, and how they're being impacted by things like climate change and habitat loss.
It's like we're piecing together this, like, giant, intricate puzzle.
Yeah, it is.
And each pollen grain is a tiny but crucial piece.
That's a great way to put it.
And as we've discussed, this research has implications far beyond just satisfying our scientific curiosity.
Totally. Real-world applications for conservation, agriculture, disease control, even our understanding of climate change. By understanding how insects move and interact with their environment, we can make more informed decisions about how to protect them, how to manage our resources, and how to safeguard our own health.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of pollen detectives, what's the key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I think the most important message is that nature is full of surprises. Yeah. And that even the smallest creatures can play such a vital role in the grand scheme of things.
That's true.
A tiny pollen grain can unlock secrets about insect journeys across continents, their diets, the diseases they carry, and how they're adapting to a changing world.
It's amazing.
It really is a reminder that we're all connected, and understanding these connections is crucial for our own well-being.
That's beautifully said. And for our listeners who, they're feeling inspired to get involved, what's the best way they can contribute to this kind of research?
Oh, there's so many ways to get involved. You could join a citizen science project, volunteer at a local nature center, plant a pollinator-friendly garden in your backyard, or just get out there and observe the natural world with a newfound sense of curiosity and wonder.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
On this fascinating journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and remember, those tiny pollen grains hold a world of secrets just waiting to be discovered.